Hello, Rag Squad. When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Allo or Allbirds or Aviator Nation, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand and brilliant marketing, but an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the businesses, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, who are home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not so secret with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning that there are way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. So, if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. It's no secret, businesses that want to grow with Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ranks, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ranks to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/ranks.
Doogie.
Sam.
We're close to the end of the European season. Typically, that would mean either a major international tournament or a welcome break greets us. But no, more domestic football follows. The revamped Club World Cup kicks off soon.
The FIFA Club World Cup is a very transparent cash grab by FIFA. Oh no, sorry. FIFA President Gianni Infantino has just given a speech where he has said that the true purpose of the Club World Cup is to inspire hope and joy in future generations. My sincere apologies. How cynical of me.
The prize money for the Club World Cup this summer is going to be $1 billion.
Because the Club World Cup is definitely a World Cup. It is history. It is the first. It will be a huge success.
Yes, hello everybody and welcome to another episode of The Truth. It is our penultimate episode of the season. My name is Sam Tighe, sat in the studio feeling very nervous already about the final Premier League weekend. Joining me in the studio, and we're actually in the same place this time, so Doogie, when you came to the studio, well done, is my friend Doogie Critchley, who I assume is also feeling quite nervous about the weekend's football.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a much bigger deal than potentially finishing, I don't know, 4th, 5th, 6th or 7th. I'm very, very nervous already. Sunderland, Sheffield United, Wembley, Saturday. I'll be there. Potentially elated, potentially crying.
Well, those are the only two options, aren't they? Really?
Yeah, there is no in between. No one goes, yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, the Wembley day, it's joy or it's heartbreak. And when the final whistle goes, one half of the stadium remains packed for about an hour. The other half of the stadium is completely empty 5 minutes later. And the dichotomy of fans, it's always an incredible photo, but you always feel sorry for the other half.
Annoyingly, I don't think the photos will be as good as usual because there will be a lot of people in the same colours.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of red and white.
Red and white,
I don't know whether
derby.
they tell all the fans, like, wear your away strips or whatever.
What colour are you guys in?
Well, I think you clarified the other day that we're in our away strip.
Did I?
Which I seem to remember, but I should probably know that myself. But I will be packing my red and white shirt in my bag.
What, to put on over the top in case
Sheffield so I'm working there, but as soon as whatever happens, well, I say whatever happens.
Oh, you're working?
I'm working, yeah, I'm doing Sky's social media.
Oh, no.
So if you see some pretty biased Instagram stories, you know who is behind them.
Good grief, that's awful. I feel sorry for you there. I've watched, I've been working, as in reporting, on an FA Cup final that Villa lost quite handily to Arsenal in 2015.
Alexis Sanchez final?
It was, I've lost track of it now. But lots of people scored.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was not very fun. I think it was more the Theo Walcott final.
Okay.
Than anything else.
I might be thinking of a different one.
But we were very, very poor. I was sat next to Gunnerblog the entire game, who's a lovely man, and obviously he was sat there watching his team win an FA Cup final, and he was tempering his celebrations and being really kind to me because obviously I was mega sad. But he was doing like fist pumps under the table and then sort of looking really guilty when I looked over at him. And I was like, James, just enjoy your team's win. It's okay. It's okay.
I always think of that in the press box. I've never been in a press box, but don't most writers sort of have to keep it together?
You're supposed to be very British and you're supposed to, be very professional. And you can have a little bit of elation or whatever here and there. Sometimes a couple of them just do ridiculous things. I've seen one journalist walk like 5 meters across a press box to high five another journalist when Man United scored a goal.
Really?
It's like, come on, mate.
Great.
Try and keep it stum a little bit. Anyway, that's enough of the weekend stuff. We've got other stuff to talk about. But first, let's introduce our voice of God producer, Jack Collins. Hello, Jack.
Hello, Sam. How you doing?
I'm very well. Look, the reason I'm nervous about the weekend is the prospect of which European competition Aston Villa will be in. I'm very sorry, but it seems like you've blown your shot at any possible European competition. So salt in the wounds, but I had to mention it.
Yeah, I mean, look, this isn't new. Like we did this about 4 weeks ago to ourselves, right? Like losing at home to Everton. So like even winning against Brentford at the weekend, which was remarkable, by the way, absolutely glorious. But even that game couldn't really arrest the slide enough to mean that Fulham will be challenging on the final day. But I think that that's great news for Aston Villa. Because if Fulham had needed a result against Manchester City on the final day at Craven Cottage, we would have 100% lost 4-0. Now, that's not to say that we can't lose 4-0 anyway, but I think that Fulham have a better chance of getting a result against Manchester City on the final day with absolutely nothing to play for. Like that should help out everybody else.
What a fantastic club they are. To be clear, though, I think our main problems are Chelsea and Forest. We need Forest to do us a bit of a favour. Very pleasing to see them perk back up again at the weekend against West Ham. Had they lost that game, Forest would have been completely out of contention, so we needed them to get at least a point so they had something to play for against Chelsea on the final day. Murillo springing back from the dead like Jesus at Easter off the cart was brilliant as well. I mean, looks like he's going to battle through whatever he's got, so fingers crossed, but we've got to do our side of the business too. That's the end of the domestic season, or it will be on Sunday. And then following that, yeah, we're supposed to get a break, but we're not going to get a break. Very swiftly after that, we are going to get the Club World Cup, and that's what we're going to talk about today. It is a hot topic. It has been for months, if not the last year or so, but it is now genuinely round the corner, less than a month away, which feels crazy to say. But we're going to discuss it, and we're going to get to the bottom of a very simple but very important question, which is, who actually cares about this competition? And the answer, I think, is probably a little bit more nuanced than some people realise, so it's a valuable conversation to have. But first, I'm going to deliver a history lesson.
Go for it.
Yeah, courtesy of Wikipedia, which is where I get all my facts. The Club World Cup, the idea of it has been around for a very long time. So we keep making up this, like the Club World Cup this summer. It's a revamped, it's an expanded version of the Club World Cup. It's been around for ages. If you're a fan of Man City, Real Madrid, Chelsea, Bayern, Liverpool, Barca, Inter, Man United or Milan, you will know this very well because your team has won it in the last 20 years. It's not a very prestigious competition, but it has existed. And as a result of it not being very prestigious, I can remember precisely one Club World Cup final, and it's the one Chelsea lost to Corinthians because it was funny. That was in 2012. The reason that's funny is not because I hate Chelsea, it's because European teams, if they don't win it, they have messed up a big time. And Chelsea did not that year. But the point is, this tournament has definitely happened in a worldwide guise since at least the year 2000. But, time for the history, it goes back much further. And Doogie, you and I have very personal ties to the very first beginnings of this tournament. I'm now going to read directly from Wikipedia. The first club tournament to be billed as the Football World Championship was held in 1887, in which the FA Cup winners, Aston Villa, beat the Scottish Cup winners, Hibernian. That was the John McGinn derby, and that's what they called it all the way back then too. And the first time when champions of two European leagues met, so the first one was Cups, this is European leagues, was the 1895 World Championship, when English champions Sunderland.
We were very good back then.
Beat Heart of Midlothian 5-3.
If it wasn't for World War I, Sunderland could have accumulated a lot more titles. We were flying.
I've always said you were just born 100 years too late.
For sure. Ironically, the Sunderland lineup in the 1895 World Championship consisted entirely of Scottish players. Scottish players who moved to England to play professionally in those days were known as the Scotch Professors.
Get the money in.
History lesson over. But the point is, this concept is literally over a century old. It is a legit concept. It started very small. It has expanded. Most recently, it's been a 7-team format. Now it is going to become a 32-team beast. 8 groups of 4 looks just like an international World Cup. 12 teams from UEFA, 6 from CONMEBOL, 4 for Asia, Africa and Central America each, One for the OFC, big up Auckland City, not that one, and one for the hosts, which has been a point of contention, Jack, because the hosts, I mean, what is a host club in America?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
how did they decide it was Inter
I was a bit confused as to what you were on about, and then I was like, oh, I see what you mean. No, so basically the issue is that Inter Miami were given this spot as Supporters Shield champions, rather than giving it to the people who won MLS Cup, which is the normal way of doing it. And basically everyone's outside of Miami is pretty annoyed about this, because they've basically looked at it and gone, that's how we guarantee Messi's in the tournament. And to be honest, FIFA need the draw, considering how things are going, the draw of Messi in there. So it's an opportunity for them to play it at the stadium, which is something that's being kind of rolled out at the moment. And you'll notice that there are some names into Miami that they wanted to have in here for, let's say, advertising sake, as opposed to everything else. So Seattle Sounders are in it. But there's a possibility that there is also going to be a third club from MLS in there, because there was a situation, shall we say, a couple of weeks ago where Club Leon were pushed out of the tournament.
Booted.
Because they are owned by the same people that own Pachuca, who are in the tournament as well. So basically they decided that this was unacceptable and they couldn't have two teams who are owned by the same people in the tournament.
It's against FIFA regs, but FIFA didn't realise this until like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Plan.
So like that's poor.
what would they have done if the Red Bulls had won and then the Salzburg are in there? Like, as in, it's all a bit weird, right? So like there's an element of this that's quite strange. So now there is now a playoff game. I think it's between LAFC and
Club America,
which is going to be held at LAFC Stadium, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever for like a neutral playoff game to get a tournament. But look, it kind of fits because it's basically a wild card round into the Club World Cup, which they love in the States. They love a wild card round.
You say it's a home game for LAFC, but the joke is that there's so many Club America fans all around the world, and particularly in LA, that this will be a home game for the Mexican side at BMO Field. But yeah, it's also just really stupid and a bit ironic that there might still be an LA team that makes the tournament, but it's still not MLS Cup winners. It's their bitter rivals, LAFC. It's really silly stuff. But that's how we get to 32. 12 venues, 11 host cities. Great. The tournament's been plonked in basically the Euros World Cup slot, June 14 to July 13. We're going to start by taking this from the European perspective, the UEFA perspective. Doogie, how would you describe the reaction to this tournament? Its format, its place in the calendar, from a European perspective.
I think it's really important to point out the differences in attitude in Europe to the rest of the world. Like, for the rest of the world, this is a really, really big deal. For Europe, it's obviously not a prestigious tournament, as you've already mentioned. European teams, except for that famous final with Chelsea and Corinthians, generally sweep up in this competition when they're in it. But for clubs in Africa, for clubs in Central and South America, this is a really big deal for clubs, you know, coming from East Asia as well. Massive, massive deal. And the thing that is attracting most clubs to it is this huge, huge prize pot, $1 billion, which works out, which is what they keep on talking about, by the way. $1 billion. They're obsessed with it, which is £775 million, which is split between the clubs. The winners will get £97 million. So for context, PSG and Inter are expected to bring in around 113 to 150 million pounds for winning the Champions League. So the prize money is pretty comparable to winning the Champions League.
I did not realise that it was... I mean, I knew it was a big prize pot, but I didn't realise it was that big.
It's vast.
Because I couldn't be able to add up all the... Because you get so much for participating, so much for the groups, and then you get extra. I couldn't do the maths. So I never really figured it out. But the fact that it's comparable to the Champions League, which is a season-long fight among the very best, is mad.
It is crazy. It really is. I mean, the highest-ranking European clubs will get £29 million, 29.6, I should add, just for the detail's sake, just for taking part. The lowest, £9.9 million. So a huge amount of money.
What's that? Is that how do you split it?
Based upon their ranking. It's based on their ranking in the last. Yeah, it's a coefficient ranking, effectively. Okay. So obviously there's a massive amount of money at stake. And in terms of who cares, well, the US really care. It's basically a dress rehearsal for the World Cup taking place in North America next year. There's matches taking place in 12 different stadiums. It's a great way for them to see how their infrastructure holds up, how their organisation works.
We used to have a tournament for this. It was called the Confederations Cup.
Yeah.
It was an international tournament. It was a dry run for the World Cup. I thought it worked pretty well. I still remember, like, the German team turning up in Russia the year before the Russian World Cup and kind of showing their hand a little bit and showing us that, the stars of the future. I remember getting excited about that team. We used to have a tournament for this. Then it went, and now it's back.
I know. And I suppose the big criticism is that of the $1 billion, there is a high likelihood that it is won by a European team. So you are kind of keeping money within Europe. I mean, only once since 2007 has it not been won by a European side. And in some cases, the broadcast revenue for taking part in the Club World Cup is equal to an entire season's broadcast revenue in that country. So it could really distort domestic competition all across the world in these various competitions. So FIFA have been aware of this and they've talked about this problem, and they've said they are targeting an additional $250 million as solidarity for non-participating clubs. But will that target actually be fulfilled? Will they follow through with that? How do they then allocate that $250 million?
What does that even mean?
What does it exactly mean? What does it mean? But there is clearly a difference in how seriously clubs are taking it. Supposedly, and I was reading a report from The Athletic's Simon Johnson yesterday, a big reason why Chelsea decided to get rid of Pochettino was because they wanted an assurance that they'd have the same manager for the Club World Cup. So they couldn't guarantee that if Pochettino underachieved again, in their eyes underachieved, and I put that in inverted commas, they might have to get rid of him mid-season, he might get fired at the end of the season. So they basically hired Maresca for a guaranteed 2-year deal. Or 2 years. I actually think he was given a 5-year deal and definitely was going to stay for 2.
They promised to keep him on for 13 months.
Yeah. But there is clearly a varying amount of how much clubs care. For clubs like Palmeiras, Flamengo, Fluminense, Brazilian clubs, basically, they've always put a huge amount of importance on the Club World Cup, same as Brazilian players really care about the Ballon d'Or. For African clubs like Al Ahly, Wydad AAC, the Mamelodi Sundowns, etc., this is an enormous deal. This is potentially you're bringing in an amount of revenue that you would never be able to achieve normally, and it puts you at a more even keel in terms of transfers with attracting talent from across the globe. So there's a clear distinction with Europe and the rest of the world.
There is, yeah.
Hello, Rag Squad. When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds or Aviator Nation, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand and brilliant marketing, but an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the businesses, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, who are home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not so secret with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning that way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. So, if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. It's no secret, businesses that want to grow with Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ranks, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ranks to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/ranks.
Hooking it back onto Europe for a minute, like, we started this season, I think back in September, more or less, right at the start. And it was before he got injured as well. Rodri was talking about the strain that the modern game is placing on the elite professionals. And Courtois came through and then backed him up. And Rodri had talked about potentially even going on strike. Courtois then backed him up on that. They talked about how FIFPro, the Players' Union, had talked about this. They talked about the intensity of the modern game, 70 games a season, unsustainable. Erling Haaland sat there in pre-season and told everyone, he said to reporters, doesn't everyone at the Euros look tired? And if you asked me to play 70 games a season, I wouldn't look that sharp either. So you can't expect us to do this. Rodri then unfortunately tears his ACL. Courtois had injury problems. Erling Haaland did his ankle and has missed. They're all missing time. It's a season defined by injuries, and there's no end in sight for a club like Manchester City because someone figured out that Erling Haaland is effectively going to play 2 straight years of football if you start this season, go through the Club World Cup, go to next season and play the World Cup. if Norway make it. That's 2 years of football non-stop. I mean, he could play 120, 130 games. It's an absolutely ridiculous amount of football for him to be playing.
Especially because you look at the amounts of games that City players have already played, considering how early they got knocked out of the Champions League by their normal standards. You know, Gvardiol's already played 51 games, Gundogan 48, Bernardo Silva 47. These are huge numbers when there are still so many games to go for them.
Yes, indeed. And just the way this tournament has been positioned as a phrase that we've started to use in recent years, post-season tournament. You know, clubs finish the Premier League season and they go to Australia or Sri Lanka or whatever, Singapore, and they do a post-season tournament, which everybody just goes, the way this tournament has been positioned in the calendar makes it feel like Spurs are off to Australia for a couple of good games against Perth Glory, and that's how it feels when you're this far out from it. It will start to feel a bit more real, I think, when we get a little bit closer. But its position in the calendar has really irked teams, because if you again take Manchester City as an example, and you take Erling Haaland, he's just played the whole season. If he then goes and plays this tournament and they get quite far, he'll play to mid-July. Well, when's the Premier League season going to kick off? August the 8th, August the 15th? Then, It's going to be...
one of those 2 weekends.
So what happens? And, you know, a lot of these players are off the back of a truncated summer anyway. Phil Foden got nothing because he went to the Euros final. Ollie Watkins got 1 week of pre-season and then came limping into Villa's first game of the season, could only play 60 minutes for 2 months or whatever it was because he was not fit enough. And he's never been fit enough. At no point has he caught this up. You can't. So it's very awkward for UEFA clubs, and that's why some of them are probably turning their noses up at this. But, Dougie, there's 12 involved. Who would you say, from the UEFA perspective, is going to take this seriously? Like, who was on your list here?
I mean, it's the obvious one to almost finish with, but I think because it's so obvious, I might as well mention it first. I mean, Real Madrid, after the season they've had, they'll want a trophy. And they have got no issue with playing very strong teams in this competition. They've won it more times than any other club, and that's partly because they always win the Champions League.
Sure, yeah. Also, again, the tournament took place in December, not at the end of the season. We don't know what the attitude is going to be like.
This is true. But
I
listen to the reports of them.
Clearly.
You listen to the reports of them trying to bring in Xabi Alonso early, etc. I think they're taking it seriously.
He's already a Madrid player.
Yeah.
Like, what? Bournemouth have got 2 games left as we record this. It's a Tuesday night. They're going to kick off against City very soon.
I do think it's interesting, though, that it will be... I think I'm most intrigued by the sides changing managers. Like, ultimately, what this gives Xabi Alonso is a vaguely competitive pre-season to have a look at the players before there's another transfer window. So if they do get him in before the Club World Cup, that's a lovely chance for him to actually experiment a little bit with the squad, try some different formations, try the different bits and bobs. I think that generally for me, that's the most intriguing part of this. And we'll come on to what this tournament means and who cares, etc. But like, I think that looking at that Real Madrid side and what they look like and how they shape out potentially is the most intriguing thing ahead of next season that's part of this Club World Cup.
Yeah, for sure. Xabi Alonso potentially in, Dean Howson in, Trent, if they can they're going to try and get him in before. I don't know what kind of fee that's going to take. This, I mean, whichever club pays for a player early by 20 days, it's going to be the first time it's ever happened in world football. So we have absolutely no benchmark for what this fee is going to be. I was on the Sky Sports podcast last week, Doogie, and I asked Pete and Dharmesh, how much would you pay to get Trent 2 weeks early? Dharmesh said 500 grand. I said $1 million.
Really?
Pete said 20 million.
20 million?
I'm not convinced he understood the question. But 500k to $1 million.
Especially when he's on a free anyway.
Yeah, I mean, even that feels like it's pushing it a bit, right? But it's going to be the first time we ever see a transfer like this. For Real Madrid, is it worth it just in merchandise and marketing to pay £1 million to have Trent at this tournament?
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Maybe.
That's what I was going to say about a lot of these other clubs as well. You feel like the clubs that have become more brand aware in the last few years, I'm naming Juventus first and foremost here, you know, with everything they tried to do around changing their logo and the signing of Cristiano Ronaldo, etc. They are clearly trying to increase brand awareness around Juventus and effectively make them more cool.
Yep.
Because even when they were super dominant in Serie A, no one really was that bowed over by them, I think, globally.
Yeah,
and I think Atletico Madrid as well, it's a good opportunity without Barcelona there to push themselves forward, get out of the shadow of the top two.
Do you think, I think Simeone's going to be like this?
But I think a lot of the managers and players will be, but I think I'm kind of describing what the attitude of the club executives as well.
Oh yeah, and of course it will be different. The executives will be like, "There's $100 million offer. Please go and win it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Todd
also,
Bowley, he'll be
Atleti
desperate for this.
Are desperate to crack the American market. Like, there's been a big push over the last few years. I mean, Sam, you and I were at the Atleti versus Real game, which was wild. Was it the 8-2 that we saw at MetLife in New Jersey, which was cool. But like, they are really pushing the American angle hard. You know, they know what the dominance is of Real Madrid and Barcelona over there, but there is a big push, concerted push. Bayern as well. Yeah. Massive push from Bayern to try and crack that market with it being a huge growing audience, etc. So I think they're the sides that will be looking at this and saying, we just need you to give a little bit extra than you might have done if this was just about money.
So you guys are sort of keying in on the brand awareness part there, which is fair enough. It's part of it, but the other element here is: did you achieve what you wanted to in your season? And if not, can you make up for it? So Madrid obviously fall into that category, as you've mentioned, but I think Chelsea potentially will end up falling into this category. Is
that wishful thinking?
I don't think the season's gone to plan at all.
No.
And they will see this as an opportunity. They might win the Conference League and finish fourth. Technically, that's progression, but I still don't think that's what they were planning. It's never really what they've been planning. So this is an opportunity. I think Juventus, it's gone so wrong for them, and from a sporting perspective, they'll be like, this is an opportunity. And then for Porto and Benfica, I mean, they're constantly strapping two pennies together, and they're always trying to find money from somewhere, and they're about to be handed like 50-60 million euros each. I mean, imagine what Porto and Benfica could do with a 50 million euro war chest scouting South America again. Imagine what they can do. Imagine the profit.
Imagine how frustrated Sporting are right now as well.
I was just about to say this. The repeat champions of Portugal, you know, the back-to-back winners of the Primeira, left out of this conversation while Porto and Benfica are there. Just, I don't know, that doesn't add up.
Sporting and LA Galaxy as sat there like, what the hell happened? Yeah. Unbelievable.
As opposed to Barcelona, who are really grateful for the rest. Yeah. They're like, please, thank you so much.
Although really, they do need money. I mean, I don't know how many seats they've got left to sell in the VIP section, but they could really do with being handed 100 million here. So they're probably wishing they were there, just because they're feeling left out right now from a brand perspective, even if it is probably after a season of Hansi Flick football, the best possible scenario for them to just take a chill pill for a second. But let's move away from UEFA, and you've teased it already. This is a huge opportunity for pretty much anybody else, and they're all taking it very, very seriously. It's either a potential gold mine, or it's a chance to rub shoulders with the big boys and step out of that shadow that UEFA casts. There is huge pride and fierce competitiveness here at play, specifically for, I think, the clubs in the Americas, but I think it applies to everybody as well. I hadn't realised how passionate this was until this week, basically, where ESPN asked me to do a collaborative piece with a few of their other regional guys, which is a very simple collating transfer rumours. Who could move before the Club World Cup? So who could move in that 10-day window? Which clubs are on the lookout for players? And I put my list together. I got put in charge of UEFA. So, you know, I did. Obviously, Real Madrid are doing what they're doing. Juventus have been linked to like 3 players. Bayern Munich have been linked to Jonathan Tah on a free. You know, yeah, this, that, and the other. The deal's going to be tough to do. Is Florian Wirtz going to move in June 1 to 10? Probably not. No. It's probably too complicated and too expensive. So I put my copy in, and then I looked at the preview link, and I looked at what the Central America guy's written, and it's like, Pachuca dream of signing James Rodriguez, but he's been banned and they are gutted. And Andres Guardado, the Real Betis legend, has postponed his retirement to play in the tournament. And he was going to play for Leon, but they got kicked out. And now he's having a crisis and he's trying to find another club. Yeah. And there's a Brazilian team who have offered Cristiano Ronaldo a 1-month contract, unnamed as yet. And Monterrey are trying to get 39-year-old Guillermo Ochoa to play in goal for them.
Of course they are. Bring him out. The tournament king.
And then you go over to Al Hilal, who, you know, toyed with the idea of signing Cristiano Ronaldo off Al Nassr, but I don't think that's going to come to fruition. But you've got pundits out there. According to Jack and I, I've got a friend who works at a Saudi club, and I texted him earlier and was like, so what's it like? He's like, there's pundits on the TV demanding 4 signings. This is like an absolutely massive opportunity to get Saudi Arabia in front of the world, and they are demanding they fill out the foreign slots. Like, taking it really seriously. And it's incredible, like the passion there that's involved. And I guess some of it's the prize money, but some of it is just, for these teams, this is the apex of football, right?
I think that when you're putting it in those kind of contexts, it really does matter, right? Like, and this is it. There's a real. I think Boca Juniors last year put out a special anniversary shirt for their 3rd Intercontinental Cup that they won in 2003. Like, these are the things that matter. And look, does it have the same pull as the Libertadores in South America? No. Does it have the pull of the Champions League in Europe? Absolutely not. I mean, in the other federations where the continental competitions are still held in great regard, but perhaps not put on the same pedestal as those two, this is a massive opportunity, but it's also a massive opportunity to market yourself to the world. So, like, I do think that, the games that I'm really, really looking forward to are seeing, Monterrey come up against River Plate. Dimas Shalis, former manager of River Plate, couldn't get out of Gallardo's shadow, basically now facing Gallardo back at River Plate in this game with a Monterrey side who have so many fun players involved.
And the fans,
that's wicked.
Well,
River also play Inter, right? Like the Javier Zanetti thing, like the Argentine link to Inter and what that means. I think that there's loads of really interesting matchups here. And the problem with all of this is
is your thing, is it? You're watching the wrong international football.
Yeah,
it's the same thing, isn't it? It's like you don't want to watch Bayern play Real Madrid in a dead rubber.
No.
What you want is you want to watch like Aurora Red Diamonds, right? That's whoever they're playing, that's the one.
So I think the problem with this is that FIFA need everything here to go perfectly, right? They need these stadiums to be sold out. And I don't know if you saw in the news last week that there was a press release coming out of Argentina. They basically banned fans who basically have ever been caught with any sort of trouble at football games. They've banned all of these fans from travelling at all. So loads of the ultras are not allowed to hand their passports in, are not allowed to go, etc., because they're like, we don't want to be seen being the troublemakers at a tournament like this.
No.
So there's going to be less colour. And look, obviously, some of those people probably shouldn't be there. But like, I'm very, very doubtful that all of them, needed to have this taken away from them. But like, the stadiums need to be sold out. And look, I think they will sell. I know they haven't completely, and I know we'll come to this.
The tickets have been a mess.
I think that they will eventually sell them out because like the pre-season friendlies sell out. So why would a competitive tournament not sell out? But I think what this tournament needs is like couple of big upsets early, but big upsets involving like Boca and River.
To beat Bayern.
Yeah, but also, I think they need to beat Porto.
Yes.
They
can't knock out the big guns.
You can't lose the big guns.
Yeah.
But you can't have them all win.
No.
So how does that work?
It.
Boca downing Bayern just sounds right.
Yeah, I mean, it would be okay if one of them falls out, right? But like,
that's like Germany getting grouped at the World Cup.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
always good.
That's always good. But like, you need the right amount of underdog getting through. You need stadiums packed out. You need a big team to win it. Like, FIFA need all of the things to fall into place, because if the big teams turn up and they don't care, and the players don't care, how are they going to sell the marketing rights to the next one? Like, if the teams turn up and there's too many powerhouses that are knocked out early, then no one's going to watch the end of the tournament as a kind of global audience. Yeah. And the ticket sales will fall through the floor for the later rounds. So you need the big guns to push through, but you also need the right amount of entertainment. But this is the problem I have, in that this should be a huge opportunity, and this should be a tournament that I love, right? Like, I would say that of the 32 teams, I've probably watched like 23 of them at least once this season, maybe 24. Like, there's a lot here that I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I watched the Urawa Red Diamonds play in a couple of the Asian Champions League games because I was intrigued to see what was going on within the J League setup and whatever. And this should be like bread and butter for me. Like, this whole tournament should be aimed at me. And I'm just knackered.
Yeah.
And I think that this is
you're
the
not
problem.
behind it, Jack, then.
Well, this
worried.
is it. Like, I like the idea of it. I like the idea of a 32-team tournament, but it doesn't add up with the entire fixation of the players are playing too much. And look, if we're knackered talking about it, then imagine how players and managers must feel. Like, somebody give Pep Guardiola a month off, please. Like at this point. And I think that whilst the concept actually of the 32 team Club World Cup I really quite like, and the opportunity for clubs around the world to showcase what they're made of, and look, I'm going to absolutely love it when Inter Miami get rinsed by everyone because they are dreadful under Mascherano. They cannot defend. But like, so like, there are going to be fun bits of it, but like generally that's where I'm worried about. And I think it takes us nicely to the question of like, yes, there are certain clubs and fan bases who really care about this, but what is going to be the pull to the general audience and the general public at this point?
Well, I think I know what will in the end draw people to watch it, and it's that it's going to be free to air, at least in England. I don't know about the rest of the world, but it seems like FIFA have done a couple of deals here and there to make sure that this is very visible, and it's going to be free to air in England at least. Now, there is not a lot of free to air football in this country. The amount that people can watch for free has steadily diminished over the last 15 years to the point where it's more or less behind closed doors, unless you want to pay probably £100 a month for the requisite setup of sports channels. You are not going to get to watch much football at all. And that's why the FA Cup early rounds that are on ITV and stuff like that, free-to-air channels in England, they feel very sacred. Mm-hmm. The fact that this is all going to be very available is amazing for those that like football, probably have kids that want to watch football, but don't necessarily want to pay through the nose to have it on in the house. So I think people are going to watch it anyway, because it's just there. It's just easy. I think, Jack, it's on Channel 5. I think they've done a licensing deal.
Channel 5.
Yeah. It's going to be like literally flick the TV on. It's on terrestrial. Like, it's so easy. So I think people will watch it. And I think FIFA have probably done enough behind the curtain to make it so that there's enough behind this.
I have my concerns. I do agree with you that it's great that it's on free to air, but football on Channel 5, you know, Palmeiras versus FC Porto. It just doesn't feel like anyone's watching it.
For a while.
And I'm just a little bit concerned that it did take DAZN eventually buying it. You know, BBC and ITV decided not to bid for it. DAZN ended up bidding £787 million for the rights. All 63 matches available to watch on their app. But they've also agreed, as Sam points out, to sub-license the tournament in key territories to expand it out. So I think Warner Bros, for example, are broadcasting it in America. Over here, it'll be on Channel 4 or Channel 5. I don't think that's completely decided yet. But there is a little bit of dodginess going on here, to say the least. So The Guardian reported... Yeah. The Guardian reported that Saudi Arabia's Surge Sports Investment Group last month confirmed that it had taken a minority stake in DAZN, valued at $1 billion. DAZN then won the broadcasting rights to broadcast the tournament. FIFA announced their prize money, which is $1 billion. So effectively, it feels like the money is coming from Saudi Arabia through DAZN to the Club World Cup. And then, there we have it.
I know. And then, what's the next bit?
Well, it's just Riyadh season for the rest of our lives.
The next bit is...
It goes back to Saudi Arabia when Al Hilal win this whole thing.
No, it's not that. It's that to further the conspiracy theory is that this is how Saudi Arabia won the World Cup.
Yes.
2034 World Cup.
Okay, that makes sense.
There you go. That's it.
Well, it doesn't feel particularly... something that we should all be that excited about if it's just another form of soft power washing.
Of course. Yeah, I get that. Just wheeling back to the football slightly, because there's one bit that I need to say is that it's about Auckland City.
Oh, nice.
The OFC candidate for this tournament, who are presumably just going to get absolutely run over. They're going to turn up and they're going to be given $3.58 million for participation. If they do manage to get any results, like any wins, fair play, you get a couple extra million.
Get $1 million for a draw and $2 million for a winner.
I think that's right. Yeah, so you know they might be able to get a draw in there or something, depending on how seriously the opponents take it, and they might push themselves up towards about $5 million. I spoke to our good friend Joe Gallagher, resident Kiwi, and said, Joe, like, put this into context for me in terms of like a budget. What does this mean? And he was like, well, I think it would keep Auckland City running for 5 to 10 years.
Wow.
But they don't actually get to keep all the money. Apparently they have to give roughly half of it back to the FA and they distribute it through the system. So that might be in place in other areas
I was going
too.
to say, is that New Zealand's arrangement? Or
I don't know. But you mentioned earlier about sort of locking up money into the UEFA zone. It might be that, you know, one of FIFA's mechanisms here for distributing money through the pyramid is that actually this sort of thing happens, and yes, some of it goes to a club, but then it gets distributed back down, and maybe Auckland City can rise again in 5 years with a team of Chris Woods. Not that he ever played for them. And
you could have.
Yeah, maybe.
Bring out Winston Reid back again.
If you did design a team that was just all 11 of one player, then Chris Wood would actually not be a bad plan.
Wouldn't have that much pace, but...
Don't need pace.
No, not with that amount of aerial presence, do you?
Keep the ball
You need to teach
in
one
the
of
air.
the 11 Chris Woods how to cross the ball, and then the rest of it would be funny.
Finishing
The
on
answer is
point
Fede
there.
Valverde. by the
No, the answer is Sergio Ramos
way.
at his peak.
The answer is always Fede Valverde.
It's Ramos, but that's another podcast entirely.
Hello, Rag Squad. When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Allo or Allbirds or Aviator Nation, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand and brilliant marketing, but an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the businesses, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, who are home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning that there are way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going... So, if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. It's no secret, businesses that want to grow with Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ranks, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ranks to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/ranks.
Right, where the tournament sits in the calendar, bad for Europe,
Yes.
but undeniably good for some of the other parts of the world.
Yep.
So for MLS, they're approaching, I think they're about a third of the way through the season now.
Yeah, we're getting
so
into the midpoint.
there's going to be a little break, I think like a couple of weeks break for MLS, presumably because about 7 of the stadiums that are being used for this tournament are actually supposed to be used by MLS clubs. So there'll have to be a little break there, but they are all in peak form and fitness, unless they're injured.
Unless they're into Miami.
Unless they're into Miami, who have just got worse and worse and worse as the season has worn on. And the same goes for Brazil, who run a calendar year tournament, basically, and they don't start their league season till basically March, I think. They play the regional cup in the early part of the year, and then they get going in about March or April. So they're going to be rounding into peak form and fitness too. Okay, it disrupts the season in terms of it sits in the middle, but at the very least, these players will be fresh, and it will be an opportunity for them to go at the tournament and peak fitness and form. Whereas, like, again, Man City, Chelsea, Bayern, probably limping into it at best with players that have either just moved in a rush or have just wound down a potential 50-game season and they're looking pretty knackered. That will presumably have an effect.
100%. I mean, the Champions League finals on the 31st of May, there then is 2 international friendlies on the 7th and 10th of June. Or at least that's England's games. But I assume, say PSG players.
Oh, no, everyone's playing.
Portugal are playing in.
Portugal are playing, France will be playing in it. So French, say if you're Ousmane Dembele, you'll play the Champions League final, and God knows how many games he's played this year. Then you'll have a friendly probably on the 7th, then on the 10th. Then the Club World Cup starts on the 14th. And that's what, the next 5 weeks.
Nice.
Wow. and look, it's great to expand the game in other areas. It's great that more money is distributed around the world, although arguably I don't know whether this tournament will actually do that effectively. But we do have to be aware, and we do carry on talking about it. I mean, how many of our podcast discussions this year have been dominated by, well, they've got really bad injuries at the moment, or the players just aren't fit, or they've kind of lost momentum in this really, really long season. It just feels like we are damaging the eventual product for the sake of just money being passed around.
And it's a shame because ultimately, like, it feels like the solution would be to have this great tournament, but without the UEFA clubs. But then if there's no UEFA clubs, there's no backing, there's no interest, there's no money. And also the pride and the competitiveness that comes out of those other nations and regions of the world because they want to prove themselves against the best. They like River Plate want to go and play against the Bayern Munich or an Inter, and they want to prove that they're just as good, and it's important to them. That disappears. So there is really no fix for this.
No. If you were starting football from scratch right now, the Club World Cup would be a really good idea.
Yeah.
Like if you were just starting to plan it out and be like, right, this is what happens here, this is what happens in different areas. The Club World Cup is a brilliant idea. And I think there is a scope for it in the game. I'm just not sure it's right here, right now.
Yeah.
And like, I don't mind it as an idea of like, okay, this is a good thing. And look, the kind of point we haven't addressed really is this is a great trial run for the States, right? Like in terms of actually getting people around, logistics, etc.
Trains? Oh, no, they don't have trains.
There's always question marks over, you know, what's going to happen in terms of fans coming in. Is there going to be security issues? All of these things that are, so this is a good trial run, right? We will find out. We're going to find out if next year is going to be an absolute logistical nightmare or not. But it just feels like they've expanded football again at exactly the moment where everyone was like, there's too much football, please.
Also,
please.
on just pure setup of the tournament, like say you're Palmeiras and you get through the group stage, you can imagine them beating a big side in a one-off game.
Yep.
But in a last 16, then a quarter-final, then a semi-final, then a final, I just don't see any way that a side outside of Europe ends up winning this tournament. It is so difficult to imagine. And look, I've been wrong many, many times before. But there's just so many rounds for them to get through. It'd just be giant killing after giant killing. It'd be one of the most incredible stories in recent history if people cared.
Yeah, and that's why Real Madrid are going to win the tournament, because they are the big gun and they will take it the most serious, I reckon. Right. Let's talk about these tickets. Because it's been a shambles, Doogie.
Yeah, you were telling me about this. What's been going on with
Well,
the
obviously,
tickets?
they set the prices and they were astronomically high because it's a brand new, prestigious event. Also, it's a sports event being held in America, which means it's twice the price that it should be as a point of standard. But people just weren't buying the tickets. Maybe it was too early. Maybe the tournament was too far away. Maybe the interest wasn't there. Maybe people were skeptical. I don't know what it was, but people weren't buying it. So 3 months ago, they started slashing the prices down, which is not what they want to do. It didn't really help. The tickets still weren't moving. So then FIFA came up with this genius strategy, which was if you buy 20 tickets to the Club World Cup, 20 tickets, and that's not like a group booking of 20. You have to buy 20 individual tickets to 20 different games. Then you are guaranteed a crack at a World Cup ticket the following year. Which sounds lovely in that, but just like, what? So some people road tested this on Reddit and they tried to actually buy the tickets. They tried to put them all in the basket. You weren't able to buy tickets for like the same day, for example, if there were 2 games at a tournament or in local vicinities. You know, again, America's a big country. So how do you get to 20 different places in 20 days without incurring mammoth costs? And you weren't even able to say, I don't know, just for an example, it's not literally this, but people were saying you can't buy 2 tickets for the same day. So say one's in the morning in New York and there's one in the evening in Philadelphia, which is like technically possible as a travel route. You can't even do that. They have to be separate days. So would you like to buy 20 tickets to this tournament as a guarantee that you can then spend more money and buy a ticket for the World Cup?
Surely that also really pushes like the idea of touting. If I had to do this and you were like, right, this is the only way I'm going to get a ticket, you buy 20 tickets and be like, right, lads, I got 1 ticket for sale going to the, you know, this
who wants to
game
go
in
Seattle?
Jersey. Yeah, there's one. Yeah, one's here in Seattle. I will sell these on.
Yeah.
Like it's so incredibly frustrating that like people don't think about these things. Like 20 is nuts to begin with.
20 is mental,
but
yeah.
even if you could buy them in groups of 4 or 5 and you bought tickets for like, I don't know, a couple of your mates to 4 games over the course of it, that's still 20 tickets you've sold.
Yeah.
Like that's fine. And that is still a lot of money that someone's spending. You're still only getting 1 crack at the World Cup, which is nuts in itself. But like,
yeah, it's not enough of a payoff at all. It's also,
just feels
it's like, would you
ridiculous.
like to spend money so that you have an opportunity to spend more money? It's quite interesting. Anyway, that didn't work. Can you believe it?
Wow.
That didn't work. So now in the last 3 days, they have slashed the prices again pretty considerably. So 3 days ago, an Athletic report suggested that there were a lot of tickets for the group stage on general sale at $30. The cheapest one, there was, I think, like an Ulsan game for $28. That's not great. The semi-final tickets are on general sale for $300. I mean, we're less than a month from the tournament and there are semi-final tickets on general sale. So people aren't going for this.
No.
You know, as much as they're trying to make it a thing and maybe people are, they're jaded. Maybe they're on holiday and they can't go. Maybe they're upset because Club Leon have been kicked out. There are all sorts of reasons to be opposed to this tournament, and for whatever reason it is per individual, it's just not really landing. I've no doubt that eventually the seats will be full, but it might go at $10 a seat, and they might have to stoop that low to actually make it happen. And we'll see how the tournament goes. I mean, we're stabbing in the dark here, guys, aren't we? I mean, I personally am going to try not to watch it. I'm not going to sit here and complain about my job is, to watch football, because I'm very lucky to have my job watching football. But I will burn out if I watch this tournament. I need a reset. This seems like the ideal opportunity to do so. There's a chance that for work I'm going to have to cover bits and bobs, but I'm going to do everything I can to avoid this. And no, a first look at Andrey Santos in Chelsea's midfield alongside Dario Esugo is not going to move the needle for me. Jack, you don't sound like you're particularly enchanted, but
I will undoubtedly end up watching quite a lot of it.
There we go.
But it does cross the 2 weeks of my wedding. So there is a period where I probably won't be watching it because I will be busy getting married.
Remind me of the date of your wedding.
28th of June.
28th of June.
I'm pretty sure Al Hilal are playing on that day.
Cup fixtures. Let's see which game we'll be huddled round a phone watching.
We'll be scrambling around to watch on my wedding day.
28th of June. ... Oh, it's the first round of the round of 16.
No, there we go.
Al Hilal are playing the day before.
The day before.
Al Hilal Pachuca, 27th.
That's what we'll have to miss the opening party of my wedding for.
Yes,
the Friday different bar to watch
the Friday
Al Hilal
night bar that
Pachuca.
I'm no longer going to because I want to watch Al Hilal Pachuca.
Correct.
And then the day of your wedding, there are 2 round of 16 games. We'll see.
Can't wait. Cannot wait.
For sure. Doogie, any plans to watch it?
No. Quite simply, no. I didn't ever think I would, to be honest. I haven't been enamoured with the whole idea to begin with. I never watched the Club World Cup in the winter. I don't watch it now. Look, I love football, but yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. I kind of need a break. I don't really have any interest in the teams taking part or the money behind it.
It's a shame. The concept, as Jack says, is really good. I mean, it's centuries old, so it's nothing new. But the concept, the idea, bringing these clubs together on paper, great. Yeah. It's just. I'm sorry, lads. It just doesn't work for me. But I hope over the course of the pod we've done a good job of explaining why to so many people, to millions across the world from different regions and zones, it means the world.
Enjoy
and
it.
just because it's not interesting for us or it comes at an awkward time for us doesn't mean that there are people out there that cannot wait for this tournament. Apparently they haven't bought tickets, but they can't wait for this tournament and they can't wait to see if their team can rub shoulders with the big boys. I guess we'll have to see. But look, if you're going, if you're interested, if you're buying tickets, if you're planning on watching, please do get in touch on social or Instagram DMs or whatever. I am really interested to hear from people that are excited about this tournament. Why? What are your plans for it? I'm interested in that side of the argument because while I don't have it, I appreciate others will. But anyway, that leaves me one more thing to do, which is to say thanks, Doogie.
Thank you very much. Please, everyone, pray for Sunderland.
Oh yes, please pray for Sunderland. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Sam. It's this has been fun. I wish I really was more intrigued than I am because I like it as an idea. I think it's just awkward timing, and I think that's probably the truth of the matter.
Next year, you'll love it, though, because you won't be getting married halfway through.
Yeah. In 4 years' time, when it comes round again.
Wait, is it only for every 4 years?
Yeah, I believe so.
That is a big benefit of it, okay.
Okay, suddenly I quite like this tournament. Wow, I just did 40 minutes on the Club World Cup. I don't even know what frequency it's on. It's time for me to say goodbye as well. Thank you, listener. We'll see you same time next week for our final episode of the season. See you then.